Welcome back to One Piece anime review, not re-review. Nope, I did do re-review today. Yep, but this is a regular review for One Piece episode number 155. This is reviewing the 937th episode of the anime, which is called Tonoyasu, Ebisu Town's Most Loved. This one adapts pretty much the rest of page 5 and goes straight to the end of the chapter, which is page 17. Mostly put, in case you wondering if any additions they made this episode, they just do some fights here and there, and they didn't really expand anything, which it's like minor additions to adapting what was equivalently about 14 pages, actually like 13 pages, about 23 minutes. What happens in this episode? Well, mostly put, we have 3 settings again. Let's start with a brief one. Basically, we have Big Mom, where her and her group basically are almost arriving at Udon. Actually shown a couple times in here where Kiku is basically telling Big Mom that they're almost to Udon, that they're basically reaching by that evening. And of course she's drooling like crazy, she's so hungry. And we see a little bit later where she's still doing the same thing, like that, where they adjust into the region and they're almost at the prison. Yep. The other setting here, I will get to the big thing that would happen with this episode, with what happens in Udon with Luffy. Then we have pretty much the people at Ebisu Town watching Yasu, who was revealed at this point to be Otaku's father. Yep, they revealed that in this episode. And, well, the fact that he somehow knows Subaru and Kinzu, well, they don't specifically remember him. But, yeah, they show he was actually an old thief, which they actually do expand upon this in the next week's episode, which features the return of Brook. Finally, seems like it's been like about 10 episodes since we last saw Brook. Yep. And, yeah, he will show up again. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Let's see, just basically goes around town. Yeah, mostly put his stuff for this episode, like going to some old man's house, giving him a massage, like drop some stuff out for him, and very some people. Yeah, that's all pulled straight from the manga. No really much change there. They explain that he gets paid peanuts, and he had the soul of his own daughter. And yeah, he had no choice but to sell his own daughter and pay his debts. Yep, sold his own flesh and blood. Oh, don't worry, she's off with Zoro, so she's perfectly fine. As the case of Luffy, well, he goes more into the explanation of what Ryu is, basically Wan's version of hockey. They didn't really use the name in last week's episode, which I thought it was really kind of dumb, especially since they use in the title, but there's barely any mention. They barely explain it in last week's episode. So they explain it here, where Luffy uses it to defeat a Armadillo Man. And then you see him in a quick montage, a bit more extensive here than shown in the manga, where he beats a bunch of guards. He kept saying wrong, wrong, wrong. And of course, he explained he has to tap into like unused hockey to get that special fireball energy he's using in his fist. And then I think they cut out this line here where Queen's like, let's take a break and let's just make a go evening. And of course, Luffy demands something to eat. Now the whole thing of him telling guards bring him some food, that actually, believe it or not, is actually anime written. That's not from the manga. And then we have Katsu show up with Renzo in his belly. Don't worry, Renzo gets out. And basically, Renzo explains to him off screen about, now before they show up, basically Renzo asks Luffy, why does he want to take down Kaido? And he says he's one of the, you ever heard of the 4 emperors? And he's like, no. Kaido is basically one of the 4 emperors. His explanation about Kaido is completely accurate to the manga. It's like very little. I don't think there's any change to his dialogue, and I think they don't change a single word, I think it's actually pretty good for the anime to do. So it's like he wants to compete in the pirates, and it's like he mentioned, oh, you were like Roger. He's like, and Luffy's like, you do go Roger, and then Harry's like, yeah, he visited this place years ago. And Luffy says, Kinemon mentioned it. He says, Kinemon, how do you know that name? And that's when Renzo shows up. And he's like so happy to see Renzo. They also mentioned that he was actually, the whole thing, he used to be a big Yakuza boss. And They mention how they free all the prisoners here. They get a big humongous army, and Kawato the Kaba is inside that cell. This I already know about. He's the first one in my mind to release. Blue is like, we gotta get some food, and he's like, Kawato basically his stuff is like, well, let me join your crew for a bit. It's like, okay, want to run home? Sure. And of course, then he brings out a big, humongous pot full of red bean soup and has the word Queen written on it in English. I don't know if that's on purpose for the anime, but yeah. And I know people might hear time saying, yeah, it just not done on purpose. It just basically how it's in the space side. Instead of saying or I think it's just something I say in case anybody was curious about that. Okay. So they proceed to start eating it, and well, that's the end of the episode. Next week's something quite interesting with Return of Brook, which I'm looking forward to that. Yep. Now, no new chapter manga this week. Nope, we have to wait till next week for that. So yeah, that's it for this particular review. My next will be a review of news demo episode release for Fire Force. And then it'll be Case Closed, and finally Boruto today, and eventually I'll go back to One Piece, okay? See you next video. Bye.